A young man reflects on his new reality after being suddenly transported to a world where the male-to-female ratio is 1 to 5. Despite adapting without major issues, he cannot shake the feeling that this world, where women slightly outnumber men, is fundamentally distorted. This feeling is punctuated by the unwelcome touch of a woman grabbing his arm. The young man, Masato, finds himself cornered by two aggressive women. They persistently ask him to have tea and demand his contact information, ignoring his clear discomfort and his excuse that he's in a hurry. Internally, he laments that this is a situation he never wanted, even as one of the women calls out his name, Masato. Suddenly, a young woman with short blonde hair named Kumi appears behind Masato, grabbing him and pulls him away, announcing that class is about to start. The spurned women look on in anger as Masato is whisked away, finding the abrupt and rude escape method frightening. As they walk, Kumi advises Masato that he can simply ignore people like that, but he finds it harder than it seems. She observes that he is too nice, which is what makes him so worrisome to her. Masato concedes that in this world, Kumi's direct approach is probably the correct one. Masato internally reflects on his situation, recalling that he was transported to this world a month ago. He notes its most defining feature, an extreme gender imbalance of 1 man for every 5 women. This societal shift has even sparked public debates about implementing polygamy. When he first realized he was in an unfamiliar world, he was terrified. He reminisces about the precious, ordinary life he lost, going to school and laughing with friends. At first, he thought he'd have to give up on normalcy. However, despite being transported without any explanation, he was met with kindness, making friends, and even finding someone to act as his guardian. Looking at Kumi, he concludes that it's only because of the skewed gender ratio that a beautiful girl like her would pay him any attention. He decides to think of himself as lucky, a positive outlook he owes to the people he's met. With newfound resolve, Masato decides he will simply live a normal life in this world. As he walks with a smile, Kumi looks at him with a gentle expression of her own. The perspective shifts to Kumi's thoughts from 1 week prior. She reflects on how simple-minded she used to be. A memory surfaces of her playing an online game, expressing annoyance at pampered male characters. As she walked through a public space, she overheard a conversation that caught her attention. In the memory, 2 men audibly rate her appearance, deciding she's an 85 out of 100 and just barely makes the cut. One arrogantly states he might consider dating her if she asked. The memory fills Kumi with rage as she silently questions why men are so arrogant. Kumi recalls the constant barrage of condescending offers from men, their words echoing in her mind. This frustration is compounded by a recent incident where she bumped into a male student in the hallway. The student patronizingly patted her head, asking if she had fallen in love at first sight and arrogantly offering to make her his 3rd girlfriend, which left her speechless with disgust. Later, in a crowded lecture hall, Kumi slumps over her desk, sighing that men are impossible. Her friend, sitting nearby, notices her despair and tries to rally her spirits, reminding her they must persevere for the campus life they dreamed of. While her friend enthusiastically declares her intention to find a handsome guy, Kumi remains unimpressed. She internally reflects on the unacceptable power dynamic of their world, where the scarcity of men means they are the ones who choose. Her friend asks if she has anyone she's interested in, but Kumi states she doesn't want a boyfriend. She is simply tired of always being in the position of being chosen and fantasizes about finding a kind man with a clean appearance who would treat women as equals. Her friend calls this ideal a luxury, like something from a fairy tale. She tells Kumi that while she's cute, she isn't aggressive enough and will end up single if she doesn't pursue men more actively. Kumi quietly contemplates this possibility. After her friend leaves, Kumi reflects on her own passive nature, believing a girl like her who makes no effort will never be chosen. Her cynicism is reinforced by the sight of a couple nearby. Just then, she receives a notification on her phone. Her next class has been cancelled, leaving her with unexpected free time and no idea what to do. While wandering the hall, she notices a male student sitting alone on a bench, looking utterly dejected. He seems to be in some kind of trouble, but there is no one else around to notice or help him. A group of passing students also spots the boy, but they decide against helping, assuming someone else will eventually step in. Kumi finds their casual dismissal stressful. While she feels it's wrong to leave him alone, she also senses something about him that feels different from the other men she's encountered. She observes him more closely, concluding that while he isn't celebrity-level handsome, there's an inner quality that seems to shine from within. Deciding she is simply curious, she resolves to speak to him and approaches the bench. Kumi asks if he's having trouble with course registration, and he confirms he is. He explains that for certain reasons, his enrollment process was delayed, and then offers a gentle, natural smile that catches her completely by surprise. She internally questions if men can ever smile so genuinely. Flustered, she offers to help him, but immediately stutters and worries that she's coming on too strong and might have put him off. To her surprise, his face lights up with pure, unadulterated joy as he eagerly accepts her offer, exclaiming, "Is that okay? That would really help me out." The male student confirms he's in the same department and faculty, his pure smile catching Kumi completely off guard. Internally, she panics, wondering if he's agreed to her help and if she can sit with him. She worries that if he's just being polite, she might actually start crying from embarrassment. Kumi, assuming he must be a senior, expresses that it's a huge help to be assisted by an upperclassman. He corrects her, clarifying that he's a freshman too. The revelation sends Kumi into another spiral of panic, mortified that she was too bold in offering help to a fellow freshman and fearing he'll think she has ulterior motives. To her surprise, he is genuinely thrilled, exclaiming that she's really helping him out because he doesn't have any friends in his year. With a warm expression, he introduces himself as Katasato Masato and asks for her name. Kumi is taken aback by his earnestness. She internally notes how kind and friendly he is, realizing he is completely different from the people she's used to. She tells herself to calm down, trying to compose herself in the face of his sincerity. Deciding to stop embarrassing herself, she puts on a smile and formally introduces herself as Igarashi Kumi, telling him it's nice to meet him. Masato, now knowing her name, looks over her completely blank class schedule. As Kumi internally recognizes this as an opportunity, Masato has an idea of his own. He points out that since they're in the same department and faculty, it would be fine for them to simply take all the same classes together, a suggestion that stuns Kumi and nearby students. Kumi is left speechless by Masato's proposal. He earnestly explains the benefits of sharing a schedule, noting that since some classes have 2 sessions, he could explain things and share handouts with her. Internally, Kumi panics, wondering if having to see the same girl every day would be a form of torture for him. Masato, completely misreading her stunned silence for brilliance, asks if she's a genius. Kumi is bewildered by his sincerity, questioning why he doesn't suspect her motives or find her attempts to get close strange. Believing it must be a dream, she agrees and shows him her schedule on her phone. After successfully registering for their classes, Masato thanks Kumi profusely for her help. As they prepare to part ways, Kumi reflects on how much fun she had talking to him. Just as she thinks she won't see him again until class starts, Masato stops her, stating he has another favor to ask. With a sincere and slightly vulnerable expression, Masato looks directly at Kumi and asks if she would be his friend. Kumi is shocked by the simple, heartfelt request. Her internal monologue reveals deep-seated insecurities, as she believes she should just be grateful that he's even speaking to her and that she is the one being chosen. Despite her inner turmoil, she decides to accept his offer and tells him she will be his friend. Masato sighs in relief, beaming as he admits he didn't have a single friend. Kumi, still blushing and overwhelmed, clutches her chest as their new friendship is solidified. Masato thanks Kumi, telling her he's now looking forward to university because of her, and says goodbye for the day. As Masato cheerfully waves and walks away, Kumi watches him go, her composure beginning to crumble. Until she collapses to the ground, overwhelmed. Clutching her chest, she admits to herself, "I can't," unable to bear the thought of just being friends. Her mind is immediately flooded with an intense, possessive desire for Masato. She sees him as a prince, exactly as she'd imagined, and realizes she wants all of him for herself. Lost in a blissful, blushing daydream, she whispers his name aloud. Sometime later, another girl with short blonde hair walks with a determined pout. Kumi Igarashi continues her internal reflection on Masato, recalling the various ways he has impacted her. She thinks about how he does the things she wishes someone would do for her, and how he surprises her with small acts of kindness that bring her immense happiness. She feels that his kindness is what saves her. While acknowledging that it's still difficult for her to act on her feelings now, she holds on to the hope that one day she will be able to. As Masato walks away, the unnamed blonde girl watches him with a blush and a determined expression. Her own internal thoughts reveal a straightforward and intense feeling. She vows that she will definitely become his girlfriend. A month has passed since the protagonist, Masato, arrived in this parallel world. He has taken over the life of a local boy, also named Masato, who had just graduated high school and was preparing for college. Though initially uneasy about his reincarnation, he is now living a fairly normal life. As he gets ready for class, a voice calls out to him, reminding him that it's almost noon. The person who called to him is Ika Tsukuda. She helped him right after he arrived in this world and has since become a guardian figure in his life. She greets him and reminds him that he has a shift at the shop at 6 p.m. Ika, who is married, notes that Masato has been exercising before work recently. She gives him some motherly advice, telling him not to get tricked by strange girls, to let her know if he plans to stay out overnight, and to drop the formal honorifics when speaking to her. Masato agrees and heads out for class, reflecting that to the people of this world, he must look like a kid from his original one. Ika watches him go, telling him not to drop anything. He arrives at a packed lecture hall where a friendly girl with short, light-colored hair waves to him. She calls out his name, Masato, revealing she has saved him a seat. Internally flustered by Komi's closeness, Masato wonders if this cute girl likes him. He quickly reverts to his cautious self, explaining that he can't join her tonight because he has a work shift. When she asks about his schedule, he confirms he has a shift on Fridays. Komi then suggests the following Monday, and Masato agrees. Komi clenches her fists in delight, exclaiming, "Yay," and says she's looking forward to it. Masato is taken aback by her reaction, thinking she's too cute. He decides to let his guard down, reasoning that she seems genuinely happy about their plans. Later, Masato reflects on Komi's character. He notes how she takes good care of others, helped him with course registration, and seems popular with everyone. He feels that in his original world, he would never have been able to get close to someone like her. Feeling a bit guilty for monopolizing her time, he turns to ask her if this arrangement is really okay with her. Masato asks if she wouldn't rather take classes with her friends instead of him. Komi dismisses his concern, explaining that she can see her friends at her club and that she's already caught up with the class material, so he shouldn't worry. She then turns to face him, her expression becoming intense and shadowed as she leans on her desk and asks a single, pointed question, "Why?" Masato is stunned into silence, wondering if he said something strange. He observes Komi smiling at him, but her expression feels wrong, prompting him to question internally why her smile suddenly seems so scary. A flashback reveals Komi's perspective from before Masato arrived at the lecture hall. She had noticed his absence and decided to save him a seat, pondering whether adding a heart emoji to her message would make him cringe. She mused that it had been a month since they started spending time together. Komi believed Masato was simply too nice, a kindness so profound she felt it was almost impossible for a boy to possess, especially one who wasn't used to being around girls. She worried his nature made him vulnerable, imagining a scenario where a manipulative girl might take advantage of him, and felt a strong urge to protect him. This protective instinct solidified into a plan: she would stay by his side as much as possible throughout college. She briefly fantasized about a future where he would thank her for everything, a thought she quickly dismissed as a joke to hide the depth of her feelings. Her phone buzzed with a reply from Masato, a simple message with a cute cat sticker saying thank you. Seeing his response, Komi found it adorable and her resolve hardened. She clutched her phone, reaffirming her decision: she would absolutely protect him. Komi's internal monologue laid out her true goal: she wanted Masato to be her boyfriend. Feeling that enough time had passed, she decided it was time to advance their relationship. However, she knew she couldn't confess directly for fear of rejection. The next logical step, she concluded, was a one-on-one outing outside of school, a date to learn more about his hobbies and what he likes. Returning to the present, Komi recognized the current situation as a perfect opportunity. She decided to ask him for a meal as thanks for saving her a seat, though she considered if her forwardness was too lewd. She quickly decided that if she didn't act boldly, he wouldn't notice her. Masato explained he had a work shift that night, so they agreed to meet on Monday instead, much to Komi's delight. While Komi internally celebrates her successful date plan, Masato interrupts her thoughts. He asks if she is sure about their arrangement, suggesting she would probably rather take classes with her friends instead of him. Komi is taken aback by his question. Masato explains that while he can see his friends at the club, he genuinely wants to be with her, but he doesn't understand why she would choose him. And clarifies that he thought she might prefer to take classes with other girls. Komi misinterprets this as him wanting to be with someone else, fueling her insecurity that he finds her a burden. In a moment of panic, Komi grabs Masato, pleading with him not to push her away. Startled, Masato quickly refutes her assumption, explaining that he's incredibly grateful that a beautiful girl like her would choose him, as he has no other friends. Stunned by his words, Komi asks if he really thinks she's cute. Masato confirms it without hesitation, adding that he thinks it would be good if she had more confidence. This direct praise completely overwhelms Komi. She is left speechless and overjoyed, internally celebrating that the person she likes called her cute. As they part ways after class, Komi is still basking in the glow of his compliment. As Komi reels from her conversation with Masato, her friend Mizuho suddenly grabs her, interrupting her thoughts. Mizuho points out Komi's love-struck expression, teasingly asking what's wrong. Mizuho continues her playful interrogation, noting that Komi is making a maiden's face and asks when she plans to introduce her to the hottie she's always with in class, leaving Komi stunned. Mizuho reminds Komi of their promise to share information about cute guys, feigning sadness that Komi is keeping this one to herself. Overwhelmed, Komi bows deeply and apologizes, insisting she can't introduce him. Mizuho questions her friend's serious refusal. As Komi looks at her earnestly, she thinks of Masato and internally makes a firm declaration: she won't give him to anyone. Taken aback by Komi's intensity, Mizuho relents but makes a new demand: if she can't meet this boy, Komi must tell her about other guys instead. A relieved Komi apologizes, thanks her, and promises to do her best. The two friends playfully challenge each other, with Mizuho declaring she'll be the first to get a boyfriend. As they banter, Komi reflects internally that since falling in love with Masato, every day has become more fun and her world feels more vibrant. Komi continues her introspection, identifying the dark feeling she gets as jealousy. This feeling arises whenever other girls get close to Masato or when he wants to spend time with them, making her question if she is enough for him. She realizes the depth of her devotion, concluding that she would do or give anything for Masato. In a symbolic moment, Komi imagines herself confessing her nature to Masato, stating, "I'm someone who gets jealous easily." The scene then shifts to Masato on a basketball court, who briefly wonders what made Komi so happy earlier. His thoughts are interrupted by a young girl who calls out, "Onii-san." Revealed to be his sister, she approaches him with a serious expression, stating that if he were to hang out with another girl, she wouldn't like it. Masato reflects on his routine at a quiet basketball court. He comes here on Fridays after his classes end and before his part-time job begins, enjoying the solitude. He muses that in this world, he can't casually play sports as the clubs are filled with women. Komi had even warned him not to join her club, fearing he'd be attacked by beasts. Resigned to exercising alone, his thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a familiar voice calling out to him as "Onii-san." The young girl from before, Yuka, stands before him with a basketball, declaring that she will definitely win today and claim the court for herself. Masato playfully calls her a little girl, which she immediately refutes. Masato's mind flashes back, identifying the girl as Yuka Maeda, who is now a middle schooler. He recalls meeting her not long after he transferred, discovering that this court he found was a place she had been using for a long time. After giving her the spot during their first two encounters, she formally challenged him to a match. Before he knew it, their meetings had turned into a recurring one-on-one basketball game, with the winner gaining ownership of the court. He acknowledges that for now, he holds an advantage due to their significant height difference. Yuka begins the game, confident in her secret strategy. She acknowledges Masato's skill but believes she will eventually lose once he's fully grown. She starts her drive with a quick crossover. But Masato easily reads the move, having seen it before. He cuts her off, but Yuka calmly states that she expected him to. She immediately transitions into a roll, catching Masato by surprise. Believing she has an open lane, she exclaims, "I got this," but suddenly fumbles the ball as she drives past him. Losing her balance, Yuka stumbles forward. Masato reacts instantly, catching her before she hits the ground. Relieved, he asks if she is okay. The relief quickly turns to panic as Masato realizes the compromising position he's in, holding Yuka from behind. Internally, he feels he must move her and calls out her name. The sudden closeness in his voice completely overwhelms Yuka, who becomes intensely flustered. She recalls that this is the first time she has had a proper conversation with him, making the moment even more impactful for her. The narrative flashes back to 1 month before the present day. A younger Yuka Maeda walks with her friends, one of whom, Rika, excitedly announces she confessed to a boy named Shoya and is now dating him. When asked if she has anyone she likes, Yuka denies it. The conversation is interrupted when another girl loudly points out that Yuka is already wearing a bra, drawing attention to her development. Yuka recalls being teased by the boys in her class for her height, who mockingly suggest she'd be the right size for a giant. Her friends' attempts at comfort are unhelpful, as they only emphasize how much she stands out. She remembers feeling isolated, questioning if being taller than everyone else made her weird. She reflects that she found the boys in her class completely unattractive and that playing basketball was far more enjoyable than paying them any mind. Meanwhile, her friends gossip behind her back, calling her a basketball fanatic and a perv, revealing they only joined the team to get closer to boys, unlike Yuka. The teasing from her friends escalates as they accuse her of grinning while reading dirty books in class, a claim Yuka frantically denies. One friend then claims she found suspicious magazines under Yuka's bed, silencing her with a hand over her mouth as Yuka tries to protest. Internally, Yuka admits that of course she has an interest in men, she's a girl, after all. She just isn't attracted to the immature boys in her class, instead imagining more handsome, older-looking figures. Frustrated by her friends' accusations, she walks away from them. The flashback ends as she arrives at an empty basketball court, the sound of a bouncing ball echoing. Yuka notes that it's rare to see someone at the court at this time, and as she peers through the chain-link fence, she sees a boy practicing alone. It is Masato, spinning a basketball in his hands, completely focused. Observing from the fence, Yuka is taken aback by the boy's explosive speed as he dribbles the ball, a level of intensity she finds unusual for someone practicing alone. His movements are so skilled that she internally admits she's only ever seen such plays in videos, and never by a boy in person. Culminating in a graceful toss towards the hoop that leaves her completely mesmerized. As Masato finishes his practice, he notices her watching and their eyes meet. Yuka is instantly flustered, her heart pounding as she thinks about how cool and handsome he is. He tells her he's heading back now, so she's free to use the court. The thought that he's leaving sends Yuka into a panic, realizing she might never see him again if they part ways here. She frantically tries to muster the courage to say something, considering asking him to play or for his contact information, but dismisses each idea as too forward and desperate for a first meeting. Defeated, Yuka can only manage to say it's nothing, and Masato begins to walk away. She immediately berates herself for being an idiot, but then a wave of determination washes over her. Clenching her fist, she internally declares that she is Maeda Yuka, a girl who never gives up. Filled with new resolve, Yuka vows that she will definitely meet Masato again. Later, at school, she excitedly tells a friend about the club orientation, declaring her intention to join the basketball team. Her friends are left confused by her sudden, intense enthusiasm. Sometime later, Yuka waits anxiously by the basketball court. She recalls her growing worry that she might never see him again, as he hadn't appeared every day. Her anxiety vanishes as Masato finally arrives, dribbling his ball onto the court. She watches him through the chain-link fence, captivated. She admires his beautiful, graceful form as he shoots the ball, thinking to herself that he is just as cool as she remembers. Masato stops practicing and notices her, recognizing her as the girl from before. Yuka is shocked and ecstatic that he remembers her from their brief encounter, and an urgent feeling that she must say something washes over her. And in a burst of pure impulse, she points directly at him and shouts, please have a match with me." Masato was visibly surprised by her sudden and forward request. After a moment, Masato casually agrees, mentioning he was looking for an opponent. The instant he accepts, Yuka is consumed by panic, mortified by her own strange behavior. Unfazed, Masato smiles and warns her that he won't be going easy on her. The one-on-one game begins. Masato kindly allows Yuka to take the first turn, a gesture that touches her. As they play, Yuka is overcome with joy, finding the experience of playing basketball with him to be incredibly fun. After the game, a winded Yuka thanks Masato for playing. Though she lost, something she notes has never happened against a boy her age, Masato was genuinely impressed with her skill. Seeing her exhausted, he grins and reminds her to stay hydrated. Masato asks if Yuka has a drink, and she realizes she forgot to bring one. When she offers to buy one, he dismisses her concern and offers her his own bottle of sports drink, which is already opened. Yuka freezes, her mind racing as she realizes the implication: drinking from the bottle after his lips have touched it would be an indirect kiss. She panics internally, terrified that if he notices her hesitation, he'll be creeped out and never want to see her again. Despite her fear, her desire to drink from the bottle is overwhelming. She resolves to act completely natural and accept the drink. Unseen by them, another boy watches the interaction, murmuring about a kiss with Onie-san. As Yuka finally drinks from the bottle, Masato calls out her name with a look of concern. Yuka, however, is lost in her own thoughts, reflecting on how seductive Masato is and recalling the sight of his flushed cheeks and the sweat on his skin during their game. Yuka's thoughts drift back to the indirect kiss she couldn't go through with, realizing it's okay because she got to sit on his stomach instead. She suddenly jolts awake, flustered, as she remembers where she is. Masato, looking down at her, asks if she is feeling okay. Yuka insists she's fine, but internally worries that Masato must think she's weak for passing out again and ruining their time together. Seeing that it's getting late, Masato tells her they should head home. He leans in close, reassuring her not to worry and promising he'll be back next week. Startled by his proximity, Yuka listens as Masato cheerfully tells her to take her spot back. He then offers her a towel to wipe her sweat, explaining that it's freshly washed and that he has a separate one for himself. As Yuka processes that she's holding Masato's towel, he encourages her to have confidence. He compliments her, saying she's getting so much better and faster that a single defender wouldn't be able to stop her. With a final wave, he wishes her farewell until next week. Left alone on the bench, Yuka reflects that Masato always says exactly what she wants to hear. She clutches the towel, realizing that ever since meeting her kind and amazing Onie-san, she has understood how wonderful it is to like someone, and that her heart is completely captivated by him. And overwhelmed by this profound feeling, she buries her face into the towel, inhaling deeply. Still clutching the towel, Yuka sniffles and apologizes to her brother in her thoughts. The scene shifts to a lavish lounge where Masato is now working. As he responds to a client's request, a group of women watch from a distance, one of them remarking that Yuka is a bad girl. Masato approaches another woman, Saira, and greets her. She looks up, acknowledging his return. The narrator observes that he is now moving on to yet another woman, ending the chapter. At the boys' bar festa, Masato works amidst a lively scene of female clients fawning over the male hosts. He delivers a bottle to a table, maintaining a professional demeanor as women praise his colleagues. Internally, however, Masato struggles with the environment, finding it painful to watch his kind senpai act so charmingly for work. He reflects that this job was a condition set by Aika-san to cover his living expenses, a role he is not at all accustomed to. While he finds the flirty atmosphere difficult, a client named Saira invites him to have a drink. Masato politely declines, explaining that he is underage. Saira teasingly asks if he prefers younger men, but he simply addresses her as milady. Masato reflects that he barely gets any requests from customers, as his only skills are faking a smile and making small talk. Just then, a co-worker informs him he has a request for table 3 from the usual customer, a fact that surprises them both, as only one person fits that description for Masato. Approaching a private booth, Masato pulls back the curtain and greets the occupant. Inside, Saira is waiting for him. Masato greets his client, addressing her as Saira-san. He gently teases her for visiting again, reminding her that she had claimed to be busy just last week. A flustered Saira insists that she just happened to have some free time. As Saira sips her drink, she comments on the difficulty of dealing with rowdy customers like the ones in the main hall. Masato internally identifies her as Mochizuki Saira, an older woman he considers an odd one for consistently requesting someone as boring as him. He reflects on the irony of working in a bar without being able to drink, acknowledging that it's his own issue. Saira quickly insists that she doesn't care about his inability to drink and isn't there because she needs a drinking partner. In a moment of agitated honesty, she declares that he is the perfect match for her and that he should be grateful. Masato calmly agrees that her point might be true and thanks her. Masato thinks to himself that while Saira can be hard to read, he believes she is a kind person. A brief flashback shows Saira's friends, including one named Miki, teasing her for being totally head over heels for Masato. In the memory, Saira vehemently denies this, claiming she only came to the club because her senior colleague invited her and she had no choice. Continuing her flustered explanation in the present, Saira tells Masato she called for him simply because talking to him is the least bad option. Unfazed, Masato smiles and says he is happy regardless. As Saira offers to pour him a drink, he gently reminds her that all he can really do is listen, but adds that he genuinely likes hearing her stories. Masato hands Saira her glass, stating that she is the only person odd enough to request a host like him. Saira concedes that she is probably the only one who would seek out a host who doesn't even drink. Accepting this, she takes a sip, a blush of embarrassment on her face. Masato watches her, thinking to himself that it's nice to see her enjoying herself. As Saira remains flustered, Masato reflects internally. He thinks that if she is enjoying herself, then he is happy too. He recalls that the first time she visited, she looked worried, and muses that her current beauty is even more striking. After all, he believes a beautiful woman deserves to live a happy life. Looking at a cute cat photo on his phone, Masato privately calls Saira his angel, feeling that her presence is what allows him to keep going. The narrative then shifts to a flashback, 1 month prior, where Saira is addressed at her office as Mochizuki-san. In the past, Saira is being reprimanded by her superior for omitting a company name from a document. When Saira explains that the manager said it wasn't necessary, her superior dismisses it as a mishearing. A nearby male colleague then smirks and cruelly remarks, "No wonder even men run away from you." The memory shifts to office gossip about Saira being dumped the previous year, just a month after she started working. This triggers a deeper memory of her first ever boyfriend in college, who callously broke up with her, admitting he already had 2 other girlfriends and was never serious. Her initial joy was shattered in just 2 months. Reeling from the breakup, Saira lay in her room crying, cursing her own stupidity for believing him. She questioned if she was only happy with him out of jealousy for her friends who had boyfriends. The memory solidifies the fact that she has been alone ever since. The flashback concludes with scenes of Saira's lonely life, working late, surrounded by social media posts of happy couples, and caught in a monotonous cycle of sleep and work. Feeling numb and isolated, she looked out at the city and wondered if she even had a reason to live. In the present, Saira's colleague, Miki, suggests they visit a boys' bar she frequents. Miki notes that Saira has seemed down and thinks being around handsome men might cheer her up. Though Saira would rather go home, she sees how much this means to Miki and reluctantly agrees to go. Upon arriving at the boys' bar festa, Saira feels out of place, having never been to such an establishment. She resolves to make some small talk and then leave, not wanting to ruin her friend's kind gesture. As they enter, a blonde host named Yusei warmly greets Miki. To Saira's shock, Miki's personality transforms completely. She excitedly exclaims, "Yusei-kun, I came again." Saira is stunned, having never seen this side of her colleague, who is utterly devoted to her favorite host. While Saira observes Miki, a group of 4 hosts makes a grand entrance, including one who bears a striking resemblance to Masato. They greet the women with a flourish, saying, "Pardon the intrusion, miladies," leaving Saira momentarily flustered. Despite the host's good looks, Saira's cynicism returns. She internally judges herself and other patrons as pathetic women who have to pay for male attention, assuming the hosts are laughing at them. She immediately feels guilty for her own terrible thoughts, recognizing the hosts have done nothing wrong. Feeling hopeless and trapped in a cycle of negative thinking, Saira decides she will have a quick bite and then leave. As she contemplates her escape, the host, who looks just like Masato, approaches her table and addresses her directly. "Excuse me, milady." The host, who bears a striking resemblance to her ex-boyfriend, formally introduces himself.
"I'm Masato," he says, confirming Saira's initial shock.
He sits down opposite her, his presence sparkling. He compares her to an angel and politely asks for her name, leaving Saira flustered. Saira shyly introduces herself. Internally, she observes that he looks so innocent and pure that it makes her feel a strange, protective instinct towards him. Masato makes small talk, asking about her plans for her day off. Caught off guard by his pleasant demeanor, Saira smiles and mentions she's been getting into gaming lately, but immediately regrets it, fearing he'll think she's a nerdy otaku. To her surprise, Masato's face lights up with genuine excitement. He reveals he also loves RPGs and city-building games and eagerly asks for her recommendations. Saira remains suspicious, wondering if his enthusiasm is real or just part of his professional act as a host. Deciding she's overthinking the situation, Saira resolves to just enjoy her time at the bar and chugs her drink in one go. Continuing her story, Saira recounts how she genuinely believed her ex wanted a real relationship, especially since he was the one who asked her out. She now sees herself as a fool for getting carried away. Masato grimaces, calling the ex's behavior terrible. As Saira slumps onto the table, muttering that this is just how it is for women, he leans in to reassure her, insisting, "Saira-san, you didn't do anything wrong." Saira's resignation sparks a surprising anger in Masato. He rejects the idea that women don't have a choice and bristles at the notion that men are superior, hating guys who get cocky for such reasons. Saira, taken aback, wonders why he is getting so angry on her behalf. As he continues his rant, sarcastically describing the unfair assumption that women can just wait for men to flock to them, Saira is struck by his words, realizing the men she knows would never voice such a supportive sentiment. His anger suddenly replaced by a gentle sincerity, Masato looks at Saira and makes a heartfelt declaration, "If it were me, I'd want to date someone like you, Saira-san." The unexpected compliment leaves her blushing and speechless. He adds that she is beautiful and kind, asserting that any guy would fall for her. His validation causes something inside Saira to snap. Her world feels brighter, and she internally resolves to dedicate herself to self-improvement, all for the sake of Masato-kun. My angel. Lying in bed, Saira gazes at a picture of Masato on her phone. She is completely consumed by her feelings for him, whispering his name and thinking that she can no longer imagine her life without him. At a later time, presumably at the host club, a friend teases Saira for flirting with Masato. Flustered, Saira denies it and tries to find a flaw in him, calling him lanky. Internally, however, she berates herself, admitting that he is effortlessly cool and absolutely flawless from every angle. Overcome with embarrassment, Saira hides her face, apologizing for being pathetic. Masato, misinterpreting her distress, assumes she feels guilty for calling him lanky and reassures her that he knows he is. He kindly helps her to her feet, asking if she can stand. As a colleague brings an order, Saira tightly grips Masato's hand. She confesses that she likes him so much and, acknowledging her own selfishness, declares that she doesn't want him to entertain any other woman. She continues her demands, insisting that he cannot smile at anyone else or take requests from any other client but her. Masato responds with professional charm, noting that her constant requests are unfair since he only works on Fridays. He then playfully suggests that if she keeps saying such things, he'll have to come every week. As he leaves, Saira is thrilled by the idea, newly determined to spend even more time with him. A female colleague surprises Saira, playfully accusing her of flirting. Flustered, Saira is caught off guard. The colleague, having found her amusement for the evening, decides to head home, leaving Saira to lament her co-workers' teasing. As they walk to the train station, Saira reflects that her life has recently become fun. She attributes this newfound joy to both Masato and her caring senpai. They arrive at the station and bid each other farewell until the work week begins. Alone, Saira notes that they got carried away and it's now past midnight, just in time for the last train. Her attention is suddenly captured by a familiar figure walking ahead, Masato.
Instead of heading for her platform, Saira makes a decision.
She begins to follow Masato, fully aware of the gravity of her actions. Her mind races with the knowledge that she shouldn't be doing this, that it is a crime, but her compulsion overrules her reason. Suddenly, Masato stops and glances back in her general direction. Saira freezes instantly, her heart pounding in her chest as she panics, convinced that she has been discovered. After a moment, Masato turns and continues on his way, having not seen her.
A wave of relief mixed with a strange, exhilarating thrill washes over Saira.
She clutches her choker, breathing heavily, before slumping against a wall, overwhelmed by self-disgust at what she has become. Having followed Masato all the way to his apartment, Saira confirms his last name, Katasato, from the nameplate on his door. Despite her internal turmoil and a voice telling her not to post or save anything, she compulsively types his address into her phone, feeling disgusted and unable to understand her own actions. As she lingers outside his door, she hears the sound of a shower running from within. The thought that Masato is just a single wall away, showering, sends a perverse thrill through her, and she collapses to the floor, overwhelmed by the feeling. Lost in her obsession, she imagines a scenario where she is with Masato, tearfully confessing to him that she feels she is broken as a person. Slumped against the wall in the hallway, Saira feels a new sensation wash over her. Believing she can no longer be stopped, she activates the recording function on her phone, resigned to the idea that another person is about to fall. Elsewhere, a young woman steals her resolve, psyching herself up for the day ahead. At another residence, a young man named Masato receives a package from his previous world. As he unpacks, he reflects on his past in a foster facility and considers the uncanny similarities and differences between the two worlds, leading him to a startling conclusion: he must have switched places with the Masato native to this reality. His guardian, a woman named Aika, reassures him that his past doesn't matter, she has already decided to take care of him. Masato, deeply moved, insists he has no desire to go anywhere else and promises to repay her kindness once he graduates, a sentiment she warmly accepts.
Aika encourages him to simply enjoy his campus life for now.
As she leaves, Masato wonders if this is what having parents feels like and sincerely hopes that his counterpart in the other world has also met someone as kind as Aika.
A glance at the clock jolts him into realizing he is running late.
The scene returns to the young woman, Komi, who has spent the entire week on a rigorous skincare and massage regimen. Believing she has achieved the peak version of herself for this important day, she performs a final check of her appearance, only to be startled when someone calls her name from off-panel.
Komi meets Masato for their movie date, feeling flustered by his presence, which she finds dazzling.
Masato apologizes for surprising her and compliments her cute clothes, causing her to blush.
Masato admits he barely has any clothes himself and suggests they go shopping since they have time before the movie. Komi agrees, internally reflecting on how Masato always thinks she looks cute.
She playfully accepts his request for help picking out clothes, enthusiastically vowing to make him look even cooler. Masato agrees, and they head into a store together. Later, seated in the nearly empty movie theater, Masato thanks Komi for her help. He admits he got carried away shopping because everything she picked looked great on him and now he won't need to buy clothes for a while. As the previews start, Komi reveals her inner thoughts. She mentally asks Masato if he knows why she chose a romance movie, hoping that it might make him start to notice her romantically. While watching the movie, she glances over at the engrossed Masato. Her gaze then drifts down to her own hand as she wonders what kind of girl he would want to hold hands with. As they sat in the dark movie theater, Komi was consumed by a single, anxious thought: whether to take Masato's hand. She worried if he would forgive her for being so forward in the heat of the moment. The fear of rejection was paralyzing. She knew that if he pulled his hand away, she would be too mortified to even get up from her seat. Ultimately, her desire to feel his warmth, even for an instant, overcame her fear. She reached out and gently placed her hand on his. The contact sent a jolt through both of them. Komi felt an incredible warmth, while Masato was so stunned he could only hear his own pounding heartbeat. After the movie, Masato turned to her with a bright smile, declaring that it was really good. Komi, still flustered from holding his hand, could barely focus on his words, simply agreeing with him. Masato continued to praise the film, noting it was a genre he didn't usually watch, and asked her to let him know about other good movies.
Komi observed his casual demeanor and concluded with a pang of disappointment that he wasn't consciously aware of her at all.
Despite this, Komi happily agreed to watch more movies with him, privately wishing that one day they could walk hand in hand. The following day, she reminisced about the date, holding a book to her chest and sighing in contentment, thinking to herself that yesterday was pure bliss. At the school cafeteria, a girl named Mizuho thanks her blonde friend for saving their seats. Mizuho declares that today is an extremely important day and that she is eating katsudon, a dish associated with victory, to ensure she will win. Her friend is confused until Mizuho excitedly clarifies that she intends to win in love. She plans to confess to Kito-san from the badminton club, confident in her chances because they often make eye contact and talk a lot. The blonde friend teases Mizuho for being on a roll, which Mizuho happily accepts. Filled with confidence, Mizuho promises they can go on a double date once she succeeds and, deciding that destiny won't wait, she rushes off to confess immediately. Watching her go, the blonde friend feels a sense of unease. She recalls that Mizuho has confessed and been rejected many times before. While she acknowledges Kito as friendly, something about him feels off to her, prompting her to follow and take a quick look. As she walks through the school hallway, she overhears a male voice coldly stating that he only talks to someone because a person named Satsuki told him to, and that he's only doing so reluctantly. The source of the voice is revealed to be Kito, who is harshly rejecting a devastated Mizuho. He asks if she mistook his goodwill for romantic interest, leaving her to stammer out an apology in her heartbreak. Alone, Mizuho processes Kito's parting words, his dismissal of her feelings as a waste of time echoing in her mind. Her humiliation curdles into anger, and she internally seethes that she can't forgive him, berating herself for not realizing his true nature sooner. Her blonde friend appears, admitting she was eavesdropping and had expected this outcome. Seeing Mizuho in tears, she calls out her name in concern. Mizuho quickly wipes her eyes and attempts to play off the rejection as a game, dramatically declaring that her one-hit KOI has reduced her HP to 0. The friend doesn't buy the act and gently tries to comfort Mizuho, reassuring her that she'll find someone much better. Mizuho, however, deflects the sympathy, insisting that third period is about to start and they need to get going. Putting on a bright, forced smile, Mizuho announces she's going outside to cool off and tells her friend not to keep her guy waiting. As Mizuho walks away, her friend sees straight through the performance, recognizing that she is obviously faking her cheerful demeanor. The friend reflects on Mizuho's character, noting how she is always positive and considerate of others, even in a moment of personal pain. Her thoughts are interrupted as she returns to the classroom and overhears another student confessing their feelings to a boy. The boy, Masato, responds with a warm and gentle smile, thanking the girl for saving him a seat. Mizuho's friend is struck by his kindness, internally viewing him as an angel, a perfect being into whom all the world's goodness has been condensed. This angelic image stands in stark contrast to her memory of Kito, whom she now considers to be trash from the filthiest corners of the world. Consumed by a silent rage, Komi clenches her fists, her thoughts fixated on her inability to forgive Kito for hurting Mizuho. Her distress doesn't go unnoticed by Masato, who sits beside her and gently asks if something has happened, noting that she looks down. Masato expresses his own disgust, questioning what is wrong with Kito. He observes that everyone is deceived by Kito's public facade and that Mizuho's kindness prevents her from exposing him, even though Komi personally wishes they would break up. Feeling helpless, Komi agrees they cannot forgive him. Masato, however, proposes a path forward, suggesting the only thing they can do is ensure Mizuho ends up happier than Kito by finding someone much better than him. Komi agrees with his sentiment. As Masato watches her, she quietly reaffirms her deepest desire. She just wants Mizuho to be happy. Masato remarks on how important Mizuho must be to her. Komi confirms this, a fond memory of them walking together as close friends surfacing in her mind. The scene shifts abruptly. A girl with long, dark hair, appearing to be Mizuho, walks alone before she is suddenly and violently tripped from behind. Her aggressor, a blonde girl, callously yells, "Watch where you're walking, bitch."
As Mizuho remains on the floor, shaken from the assault, a pair of polished dress shoes walks into her view. A male voice from above asks if she is okay. A kind-faced young man helps Mizuho up, causing her to blush. As this happens, Komi's internal monologue reveals her deepest wish, for Mizuho to find someone she can love with all her heart. The moment is framed by the thought that fate is beginning to play its hand. Mizuho reflects on the concept of love, which she has only ever seen depicted in media like music, stories, and movies. She yearns to experience the beautiful, sparkling feeling for herself and truly fall in love. She internally questions what love even is, admitting that while she can recognize that some people, like TV idols, are handsome, she has never once felt the desire to be their girlfriend. Mizuho wonders if romance is simply about someone's gestures and words making one's heart race, a feeling she has never experienced. Her thoughts drift to a past conversation where a friend dismissed her inexperience, suggesting that being single for so long was embarrassing. The friend advised her to just try getting into a relationship, claiming that everyone makes compromises and finds someone who is simply good enough. Following that advice, Mizuho recalls forcing herself to date someone, believing she had to make a move or nothing would ever change. This effort culminated in a painful confrontation where her then-boyfriend asked why he had to go through something like that. Back in the present, Mizuho lets out a weary sigh. Mizuho tells Komi that she just dumped her boyfriend, admitting she never really wanted to date him and only did it to have the experience. Komi expresses understanding rather than anger. Taking some responsibility, Mizuho accepts it was partly her fault. Komi lightheartedly jokes about stirring up trouble for her next time, and the two friends share a laugh. Attempting to move on, Mizuho tries to encourage herself to find a new boyfriend. However, the thought triggers a vivid, paralyzing memory of a former partner's controlling words. The sudden recollection overwhelms her, and she collapses to the floor. Alone, Mizuho is consumed by the painful memory and breaks down, weeping uncontrollably. Sometime later, while riding a train, she looks back on her emotional breakdown with shame, wondering how she could be so weak and pathetic. The emotional distress makes her feel physically ill. Walking through the city, she continues to chastise herself for being so hurt by a past rejection, concluding that her mental fortitude is severely lacking and that no one would pay attention to someone like her. Lost in her self-deprecating thoughts, Mizuho accidentally collides with a blonde woman, who immediately and aggressively berates her. The force of the collision knocks Mizuho's contact lenses out, causing her vision to become a blur. Unable to see, she stumbles through the crowded street, blindly apologizing to the indistinct figures around her. Crawling on the ground, Mizuho feels utterly miserable and wishes she could disappear. As she reflects on what a terrible day it has been, a man's voice from above asks if she is okay. She looks up to see a young man dressed in a formal vest and bow tie, looking down at her with a concerned expression. Unable to see him clearly, Mizuho is stunned when he offers to help her look for her contact lenses. Overwhelmed, she thinks of him as a hero coming to her rescue, but simultaneously feels ashamed, not wanting him to see her tear-stained face. Mizuho is shocked that someone would help a girl as pathetic as she feels. The world, which felt so unbearable moments before, suddenly goes quiet. She can no longer hear the city sounds, only the deafening beat of her own heart. And in that strange, focused silence, it feels as if it's just the two of them. As they search the ground together, the man suddenly spots the tiny lens and announces, "Found it." He carefully presents the contact lens to her, expressing his gladness. As he kneels, he gently advises her to be careful. Mizuho, flustered by his polite and gentle demeanor, thanks him profusely. Mizuho realizes that only one contact lens fell out, meaning she is still missing the other. Internally, she panics, thinking that if it were just one, she could have managed on her own. The man, noticing her distress, asks if everything is okay, expressing his relief with a cheerful awesome. The man continues to show concern, asking if she'll be alright alone and offering to find her a mirror. Mizuho insists she's fine, not wanting to trouble him further. As he waves goodbye, telling her not to worry about the handkerchief, her heart begins to pound, and she feels a sudden urge to stop him, realizing she hasn't properly thanked him. Watching his retreating figure, Mizuho is struck by how dazzling he seems. This feeling intensifies her self-consciousness about her own appearance,
and she mentally calls herself stupid for her perceived messiness. Overwhelmed with regret, she crouches on the ground, chiding herself for not at least asking for his name so she could return the handkerchief. With her heart still racing, she clutches her chest and wonders if this overwhelming feeling is the start of something new. As she clutches the handkerchief to her face, her heart still thumping, she notices a pen has fallen out onto the ground. Looking up, her attention is drawn to a nearby sign for a business called Boys Bar Festa. Inside the bar, the kind stranger, now identified as Masato, arrives for his shift, apologizing for being late. He explains to a colleague that he came in to help on his day off because they were short-staffed. Another co-worker, Yusuke, takes credit for styling Masato's hair, revealing he is a senior staff member who helped Masato when he first started. At the bar, Yusuke playfully puts Masato in a headlock, teasing him about a coral stab from a girlfriend. Masato laughs, internally noting how different his senior's mindset is from the rest of the world. Yusuke asks if Masato got hurt, but Masato dismisses it. He reflects on his deep respect for Yusuke, who isn't arrogant despite being his senior. As another colleague urges them to get back to work, Masato volunteers to restock the toilet paper. While cleaning the restroom, Masato's thoughts drift to the girl he helped earlier, recalling that he had to leave her in a hurry. And he finds himself wondering if she was okay. He remembers her distress, recalling that she was crying because she had lost her contact lenses. Masato tells Saira that he genuinely enjoys listening to her talk, just as he always does. His kind words, however, cause her to break down completely. She begins to cry, apologizing profusely and stating that she saw it, leaving Masato utterly confused. Saira's thoughts spiral back to the moment that caused her distress. She recalls seeing Masato with another girl, asking him if he was with her that night. The memory is of him returning a lost item to a girl wearing a face mask. Internally, Saira romanticized the encounter, viewing it as a scene from a novel where a prince and princess meet for the first time. This idealized image forces her to confront her own place in the narrative, wondering, then who am I? Her self-perception plummets as she casts herself as an insignificant side character, a background extra who can only hopelessly admire the prince from afar. She clenches her fist, internally screaming in denial of such a role. Overcome with jealousy, Saira believes she should be the one with Masato. She recalls the other girl's appearance, noting that even with a messy face and swollen eyes, she possessed a certain charm. This thought only deepens Saira's own feelings of inadequacy. Saira condemns herself as a disgusting, jealous background character who doesn't belong in the picture. Bringing her internal turmoil into the present, she looks at Masato with a pained expression and confesses that she is sorry because she ended up stalking him. Continuing her confession, Saira reveals that she has photos of Masato on her phone. She admits she knows it's a crime and has tried to delete them many times, but she just can't bring herself to do it. Overcome with shame, she clutches her head in despair. Instead of reacting with anger, Masato gently places a hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her. He tells her it's okay, reassuring her that he's sure she just got lost in the wrong. He smiles kindly, stating that he knows she is a really good person. Masato's unexpected kindness shatters Saira's composure completely. She begins to apologize profusely for everything, for stalking him, for witnessing the earlier event, and for feeling such ugly jealousy. Fearing that Masato will end up hating her, a thought she feels she couldn't bear, Saira suddenly lunges forward and embraces him tightly. She calls herself the worst woman ever as a stunned Masato is left momentarily speechless. Masato returns the embrace, gently patting her head and repeating that it's okay because he knows she's a kind person. As he comforts her, Saira's internal monologue takes a sharp turn. While outwardly crying about being the worst, she realizes what she calls an incredibly selfish truth. This truth is a complete shift of responsibility. Internally, Saira's guilt twists into resentment as she thinks, it's your fault, Masato-kun. She blames him for making her fall for him so hard that she lost control, hating that this line of thought allows her to avoid her own guilt. As Saira continues to embrace Masato, her internal thoughts take a sinister turn. She concludes that the only feeling she has left is a desire to chain and completely ruin him. With a faint, chilling smile, she thinks that she should apologize to him in advance for what she is about to do. Her silent vow concludes with the thought that she is never letting him go. The scene then shifts to a past moment where Saira is at home, examining a handkerchief and a pen she presumes belong to Masato. Upon closer inspection of the pen, she has a sudden realization. Saira recognizes the pen is from a university, which sparks the exhilarating thought that she and Masato might attend the same school. Overcome with joy, she falls onto her bed, her heart pounding with a sparkling excitement she's never felt before, solidifying her intense desire to see him again. Returning to the present embrace, Saira internally reflects on this memory as the moment her threads of destiny began to move in an unexpected, yet welcome, direction, cementing her obsessive path forward. A few days after being rejected, Mizuho recounts a new romantic development to her friend, Komi. On the same day she was turned down, a boy helped her with a dropped contact lens. Mizuho, ecstatic, declares it must be a destined encounter, much to Komi's weary exasperation. Komi notes that she's heard this story many times, but is still glad for her friend. Mizuho, however, insists this time is different, believing that despite her many past loves since childhood, this is the first time she has experienced what it means to truly love someone. After a moment of playful teasing, Mizuho formally asks Komi to help her find the boy, calling her friend Watson. Komi points out the obvious flaw in the plan. Mizuho doesn't even remember his face, and there are many new students who might fit the description. Mizuho insists she'll remember him once she sees him, offering the single clue that he had slicked back hair. She compares her situation to the folktale of the grateful crane, determined to repay the boy's kindness. Later, Komi receives a text message from Masato asking to meet. Elsewhere, Saira reflects on her past actions. She used to intentionally keep friends away from Masato to prevent them from developing feelings for him. She had thought she no longer needed to worry about Mizuho, but now a new seed of doubt has been planted. In a prior conversation, Komi asks Mizuho if she wants to attend the next lecture with Masato. Mizuho questions this, reminding Komi that she'd previously been prevented from meeting him. Komi's internal monologue reveals her motive: if Mizuho finds her destined one, she won't have to worry about her anymore. A flashback also shows Masato's perspective on his relationship with Saira, noting that he felt partly responsible for her lack of other friends. Komi continues to tease Mizuho, confidently stating that if she talked to Masato for even 30 seconds, she would inevitably fall for him. Mizuho becomes flustered, accusing Komi of making fun of her and lamenting how love can ruin a person. Mizuho pleads with Komi not to say anything strange when they meet him, but Komi playfully declares herself Mizuho's official promo ambassador. She then leans in close, urging Mizuho to confess her feelings, which Mizuho deflects by telling her to mind her own business. Later, Masato texts Komi, confirming that he, Komi, and her friend can all go to class together. He reflects internally that while he's happy to expand his social circle, he's more relieved that Komi hasn't neglected her own friendships because of him. As he walks through the school, he hears his name being called. Arriving at the classroom, Masato sees Komi waving him over. She gestures to the girl beside her and cheerfully introduces her, saying, "This is my best friend, Tanasaki Mizuho." Masato is immediately struck by Mizuho's appearance, thinking to himself that she is a different kind of beautiful than Komi. Mizuho seems equally impressed. Komi formally introduces them, and Masato greets Mizuho, mentioning that Komi has told him a bit about her. Immediately after the introduction, Mizuho leans in extremely close to Masato, causing him to recoil in a flustered panic. He internally questions if he came across as creepy or said something wrong, completely misreading her intentions. Mizuho, meanwhile, is simply confirming what Komi had told her about him. Pulling back with a satisfied sparkle in her eye, Mizuho internally confirms that Masato is indeed handsome. Komi watches the exchange with amusement, teasing Mizuho about her forwardness. Masato, recovering from his shock, simply concludes that Mizuho is a lively person and decides to introduce himself properly. The two formally greet each other. Mizuho extends her hand, stating her full name is Tanasaki Mizuho. Masato introduces himself as Katasato Masato. As they shake hands, he is struck by how small her hand feels in his. Masato continues to reflect on Mizuho's petite stature, thinking that while Komi is also small, Mizuho seems even more so, which gives him a slight sense of worry.
The scene then transitions to the trio walking through the school hallway after class. As they prepare to leave, Komi suddenly remembers she left something in the classroom. She tells the others to go on ahead, but Masato insists on waiting for her. Mizuho agrees to wait as well, and Komi thanks them before rushing back. Now alone on a bench, Mizuho internally praises Masato's kindness, viewing his simple decision to wait for a friend as a sign of his good heart. After a moment of contemplation, she turns to him with a serious expression and declares that there is something important she needs to tell him. Instead of a confession, Mizuho makes a startling request. She wants Masato to help her find her destined partner. She explains that this person is a first-year student at their university, leaving Masato completely taken aback. When Masato asks for more details, Mizuho coyly admits she knows very little, not even the person's name or department. The only characteristics she offers are that he has slicked back hair and is about the same height as Masato, who begins to ponder this vague description while Mizuho watches him closely. Mizuho pleads for his help, mistakenly assuming that as Komi's boyfriend, he must have a large network of friends. Flustered by her request and her assumption, Masato quietly confesses that he doesn't have any friends at all. Despite his lack of connections, Masato agrees to help if he happens to find someone matching the description. Just then, Komi returns, delighted to hear that Masato is helping Mizuho. As the three walk together, Mizuho reflects internally on how much fun this is. At the train station, Komi heads off on a different line. Mizuho and Masato discover they take the same train, and as they walk to their platform, Mizuho decides it's a good opportunity to investigate Masato's relationship with Komi. Mizuho asks directly about their relationship, and Masato clarifies that they are just friends. He explains that since he enrolled late and was alone, he is incredibly grateful for Komi's kindness and feels a strong desire not to betray it. Mizuho internally despairs at Masato's obliviousness, realizing he is genuinely unaware of Komi's feelings for him. She mentally labels him a dense heartbreaker and, with a sigh, deems the situation hopeless. As they walk, Mizuho is suddenly recognized by a boy from her past, causing her to panic. A flashback reveals a painful memory involving a first-year, Tamasaki, who confessed to this boy, Kito, and was rejected. Desperate to avoid a confrontation, Mizuho tries to hurry Masato away. Kito intercepts them, launching into a vicious verbal attack on Mizuho, calling her an ugly bitch. The assault renders Mizuho immobile, her legs shaking with fear. She is mortified that Masato, with whom she was just starting to get along, is witnessing her in such a pathetic state. Mizuho's mind floods with the trauma of being treated as an outsider, resolving not to cry miserably again. The memory becomes clearer. Kito, standing with another girl, had cruelly mocked her, declaring that nobody would ever date someone so ugly. Masato, enraged, steps between them to confront Kito, shouting defiantly, "She's not ugly. Mizuho-chan is cute." Mizuho stares up at him, stunned and visibly moved by his passionate defense. He continues, admitting he doesn't know their history but is certain Kito is wrong about her. Masato praises Mizuho's kind-hearted and wonderful personality, even citing her recent confession to him as proof of her value. Overhearing his words, Mizuho blushes, deeply touched by his sincerity. As the confrontation continues, Mizuho is internally conflicted. She feels she has to stop the argument but is frozen, overwhelmed by Masato's defense of her and the resulting heat rising in her face. Kito scoffs, asking Masato if he'd actually date an ugly girl like Mizuho. Disgusted, Masato simply calls him an idiot and turns his back, ending the conversation. Kito, defeated, tells his companion they're done and leaves. Masato walks back towards a stunned Mizuho. Masato catches up to Mizuho and apologizes, worried he made it difficult for her to go to her club. Mizuho dismisses his concern, stating that it was already hard for her and that she feels worse for getting an outsider like him involved. Trying to cheer her up, Masato offers to treat her to a drink at a new place as an apology. His kindness overwhelms Mizuho, who internally pleads for him to stop. She reveals her inner conflict. She is jealous, because this kind person is her friend Komi's crush. Mizuho thinks about her friend, Komi, who can openly express her affection for Masato. This triggers a painful memory for Mizuho of when she confessed to Kito and was cruelly rejected, making her wish she had known his true nature beforehand. Masato perceives Mizuho's forced cheerfulness. He gently places a hand on her shoulder, reassuring her that no one would be unhurt after such an encounter and that she doesn't need to pretend. With a sudden burst of energy, he tells her to wait as he runs off to buy them some drinks. As she walks away from the earlier confrontation, Mizuho is struck by a sharp emotional pain. She internally questions why she is so easily swayed, recognizing the feeling but struggling to put it into words. With her heart pounding, she resolves to endure it, reminding herself that she must hold back because Masato is the person her friend, Kumi, has a crush on. Overwhelmed by her feelings, Mizuho breaks down in front of her friends. Clutching her head in distress, she turns to Kumi and offers a heartfelt apology, saying, "Kumi, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." With tears in her eyes, Mizuho finally identifies the source of her turmoil: love. She internally reflects on how incredibly difficult it is to like someone. As her feelings overflow, Masato stands nearby with a cheerful expression, completely oblivious to her inner conflict. On a Friday afternoon, a first-year student named Yuka holds a basketball, her thoughts drifting. She reflects that while the past week felt tedious, she is now looking forward to playing basketball with someone she refers to as Oni-san. Her cheerful demeanor does not go unnoticed by her friends, who playfully corner her and ask about her recent Friday plans. When Yuka gets flustered, they immediately jump to the conclusion that she has a boyfriend, much to her shock. Despite Yuka's frantic denials, her friends become excited by the prospect and declare their intention to follow her. Internally, Yuka panics, clarifying to herself that her relationship with Oni-san is completely innocent. He is simply teaching her how to play basketball, and she worries that her friend's presence would bother the kind upperclassman. Later, while waiting in the gym, Yuka thinks that having this time alone with him is worth the wait. Unbeknownst to her, she is being watched by a group of second-year students. One of them, Marin-senpai, voices her disdain for Yuka, whom she finds infuriating. The upperclassmen begin to gossip cruelly, betting that Yuka's supposed boyfriend must be ugly. Yuka overhears their comments, her expression falling in shock. As Marin's group walks away, calling Yuka a show-off, Yuka silently notes Marin's terrible personality, resolving that she can endure the teasing as long as it is directed only at her. Arriving home, Yuka is still fuming over the gossip she overheard, thinking that she won't forgive them for insulting Oni-san. She feels an urgent need to see him, believing his presence can make any bad feelings disappear. Remembering a towel he lent her, she decides to return it, but first clutches it to her face, inhaling deeply. Yuka is overwhelmed by the scent from the towel, feeling herself melt from its destructive power even though it has been washed. She rationalizes that no one can blame her for indulging just one more time before washing it again. Suddenly, her mother enters her room, startling Yuka with a loud "Wah." Her mother, confused, reminds Yuka that she was the one who asked for her water bottle to be made. Shortly after, Yuka grabs her things, thanks her mother, and rushes out of the house. Yuka arrives at a basketball court to find Oni-san already there. He greets her cheerfully as Yuka-chan. Internally, Yuka is flustered by how cool he looks. When he calls her name, she resolves to say something she's been holding back, nervously clutching the hem of her shirt. She formally asks him that, since they are rivals, he doesn't need to hold back and can feel free to just call her Yuka. She immediately cringes at her own stiff delivery, thinking she sounded like a samurai making a formal plea. To her relief, he simply laughs and agrees, saying, "Alright then, Yuka, today, I'm taking this spot again." Overjoyed by him using her first name, Yuka internally celebrates with a triumphant "Yay." As they begin their basketball practice, Oni-san reminds Yuka to do her warm-up exercises, playfully threatening not to compete with her otherwise. Elated, Yuka agrees, remembering his advice from the previous week. She immediately tries to dribble past him, but he easily intercepts her, a slight smile on his face. Despite his defense, Yuka manages to score a basket. Oni-san compliments her, noting her improvement and joking that at this rate, he might have to seriously try to take his spot back from her. Filled with determination, Yuka clenches her fists, ready for the challenge. She confidently declares that she will take his spot back for sure. However, just as they are about to switch to offense, a sudden, heavy downpour interrupts their game, forcing them to run for the nearest shelter. Under the cover of a small pavilion, Oni-san asks Yuka if she has a towel.
As she begins to answer, her eyes fixate on his white t-shirt, now soaked and transparent from the rain. A wave of shock and embarrassment washes over her as her mind screams that the sight is far too suggestive. Oni-san, noticing her silence, calls her name. Yuka, however, is completely lost in her own panic, covering her face and trying to calm her erratic breathing. She worries that this is bad and frets that if he finds out she's looking at him in such a way, he'll be disgusted and tell her to never come near him again. The thought of his rejection terrifies her, and she struggles to resist the urge to look again. Misinterpreting her strange behavior and flushed face as signs of illness, a concerned Oni-san reaches out and places his hand on her forehead to check for a fever, asking if she's feeling okay. The unexpected touch only amplifies Yuka's flustered state. Still misinterpreting her flustered state, Oni-san notes that Yuka has gotten cold and gently drapes a jacket over her shoulders. Internally, Yuka panics at his extreme closeness, feeling her heart is about to explode. He explains that it's all he has, and they agree to wait for the rain to stop. As Yuka stands wrapped in his shirt, her heart still pounding, Oni-san asks her to turn the other way for a second. Confused, Yuka hears the sounds of splashing water and rustling fabric behind her. She suddenly panics, realizing he must be wringing out his wet shirt and changing. The realization that Oni-san is now shirtless just behind her sends a shock through Yuka. She freezes, thinking that if she turns around, she will see him naked. An intense internal debate begins as Yuka tries to justify looking, telling herself that it wouldn't be her fault and that any girl in her situation would be tempted. Her thoughts quickly escalate into a vivid fantasy, wondering if anyone would blame her for hugging him, licking him, or even going all the way. Believing no one is watching, she gives in to her impulse and reaches out to grab him just as he finds what he was looking for. The intense moment is revealed to be a fantasy as Yuka is jolted back to reality by her mother's voice, her mind filled with dizzying spirals. Internally, she berates herself for being a coward. The scene then shifts to a flashback at the girls' basketball room, where a teammate enthusiastically congratulates her. In the flashback, Yuka's teammates celebrate her making the starting lineup for the first time in an official match. While grateful, Yuka feels a sense of responsibility towards her teammates who didn't make the cut. However, her moment is interrupted by an older student who accuses her of not cleaning the indoor court properly, implying she's shirking her duties. The older student, Maeda, dismissively orders Yuka to clean again. Yuka complies meekly, recognizing the situation as blatant harassment but resolving to endure it. Maeda then calls her over for a private word. Maeda physically intimidates Yuka, slamming her against a wall and kicking it near her head. She warns Yuka not to get arrogant, claiming she only made the team due to the coach's favor. Yuka internally notes that Maeda, a former soccer player, seems obsessed with tearing her down. As Maeda walks away, Oni-san, who had been sitting nearby, remarks to a friend about the complexities of club politics, noting how jealousy can drive older students who don't practice to lash out. Overhearing his analysis, Yuka flees the scene. The narrative returns to the present day, a Sunday. Yuka is at an outdoor court, disappointed to find Oni-san isn't there. Still unsettled by the memory of Maeda, she decides to practice, reflecting that all her recent improvement and her spot on the lineup are thanks to his help. Practicing alone, Yuka reflects on her motivation. She likes Oni-san. Deciding to copy his style, she recalls the image of him she has memorized and begins to emulate his moves, executing a leg-through crossover, a roll turn, and a sharp drive across the court. She attempts a difficult fadeaway shot, just like the one she saw him make, but the ball bounces off the rim. Wiping sweat from her brow, she admits to herself how hard it is and that she can't manage the final shot at all. As she catches her breath, she thinks about how amazing Oni-san truly is. Her solitary practice is suddenly interrupted when she notices a group of older students approaching the court, remarking that they've found a nice spot. The group complains that they weren't done practicing and that someone is already using the court. Yuka is horrified to recognize Maeda among them, wondering why they are here. Maeda and her friends confront Yuka, sarcastically calling her the diligent star first year. One of Maeda's friends suggests that if they practiced there, they might get good too. Feeling intimidated, Yuka tries to leave, but Maeda grabs her arm, stopping her.
With a cold smile, Maeda tells Yuka not to be so cold and insists, "Let's practice together." Trapped, a fearful Yuka can only agree. Yuka is completely exhausted from the forced practice, struggling to catch her breath.
Maeda taunts her, questioning if she's already worn out and how she expects to survive an official match. Internally, Yuka has lost all track of time, unsure if 30 minutes or an hour has passed. While the upperclassmen take a break, Yuka realizes she's been forced to play non-stop.
Maeda's friend then proposes a 2-on-2 match.
Desperate for even a sip of water, Yuka is instead handed the ball and told she's starting on offense.
During the 2-on-2, Yuka observes that her opponents aren't even trying seriously.
Despite this, her legs are too heavy with fatigue to move properly, preventing her from getting past them as she normally would.
Maeda's friend mockingly asks if this is all she has, suggesting she should just withdraw. Maeda invokes the name of Ayako-senpai, telling Yuka to consider the feelings of the senior who can no longer play. This triggers a memory for Yuka, who also notices Ayako's friend watching from the sidelines.
The scene flashes back to a team meeting where Yuka was announced as part of the starting lineup, receiving a congratulatory hug as Ayako-senpai looked on.
The memory continues, focusing on Ayako-senpai's sincere encouragement.
She told Yuka she would do great and to do her best.
Yuka recalls her determination to work hard for Ayako's sake.
The flashback ends, returning to the present where a panting Yuka is confronted by Maeda, who demands to know what's wrong with her. Losing her patience, Maeda screams, "Come on," and violently shoves Yuka with both hands, sending her stumbling and falling hard onto the court floor with a cry of pain.
Overwhelmed by pain and exhaustion, Yuka struggles to breathe.
The mocking laughter of her tormentors echoes in her mind as she questions why she has to endure such suffering.
Collapsed on the gym floor, Yuka has no strength left to get up. Maeda and her friend loom over her, taunting her about the game not being over and suggesting she start over from the basics. Despite the abuse, Yuka's core motivation remains simple: she just loves basketball.
Tears well up in Yuka's eyes as she battles a fierce internal conflict. Part of her wants to give up, but a stronger part refuses to lose to people like them.
Her thoughts are suddenly cut short by a calm, male voice observing that they seem to be having fun.
And she looks up to see a young man standing there.
With a look of surprise and recognition, she quietly says his name, Oniai-san.
Waking up at 10:28 a.m., the young man known as Oniai-san checks his phone. He sees messages from Kumi, Saira, and Yuka, noting that Yuka is already at club practice. Her diligence makes him feel protective, like she's a little sister. Feeling a competitive urge to keep up with her, he considers exercising himself.
As he looks out his window, he is surprised to see Yuka just outside.
He finds her at a nearby basketball court, initially assuming she is practicing with friends.
However, he quickly senses that something is wrong with the dynamic.
He hesitates to approach, worried he might be misinterpreting the situation. He immediately realizes his hesitation was a mistake. As he gets closer, he sees the confrontation clearly. A startled Yuka looks over her shoulder and recognizes him, calling out, "Oniai-san."
Oniai-san steps between Yuka and her bullies.
When Maeda defensively asks who he is, he scoffs, questioning if ganging up on one person is what they consider fun. Watching him, Yuka realizes with shock that this is the first time she has ever seen him truly angry. After the confrontation, Oniai-san offers Yuka a water bottle, apologizing for being late and telling her to rest. As he gently pats her head, Yuka feels a blush creep up her face, surprised that even in this situation, her body reacts with joy.
Maeda's friend defensively asks Oniai-san what he's trying to accomplish, claiming they weren't bullying Yuka but merely testing if Maeda was fit to be a starter. Yuka, her expression hardening, retorts that this is untrue.
She accuses them of resorting to trying to injure her or break her spirit because they couldn't defeat her in a fair match.
Oniai-san turns his attention back to Yuka, asking if she feels well enough to move after a short rest.
He then leans in, his tone encouraging, and tells her it's time to show them how strong she really is.
He then addresses the bullies directly, proposing that if Yuka beats them all, the matter will be settled. Maeda's friend scoffs at the idea, questioning if he's kidding.
Oniai-san clarifies that he and Yuka will team up to play against all four of them, adding that he won't even jump.
Mayeta's friend smirks, noting the significant height difference and accusing them of underestimation.
She agrees to the deal but adds a condition: if they win, Yuka will be acknowledged as a proper starter. However, if Yuka loses, she must withdraw from the starting lineup entirely. Yuka hesitates, clutching the water bottle as she weighs the high stakes. Unwilling to back down, she glances at Oniai-san's confident expression for a moment before turning back to her rivals and firmly agreeing to the terms. Yuka formally accepts the challenge, confidently stating that she and her brother have no intention of losing.
Oniai-san confirms that they will start on offense. As the match begins, Yuka internally notes that 2 of their 4 opponents are considered among the best players on the court. Despite this, Oniai-san immediately takes control of the ball and begins a swift drive toward the basket, effortlessly blowing past the first defender. The opposing girls are shocked by his speed, with one yelling at her teammate in disbelief.
Yuka watches in awe, realizing her brother's skill is on a completely different level. Oniai-san draws the attention of 2 defenders, creating an opening. He passes the ball to a now unguarded Yuka, leaving the defender he bypassed gritting her teeth in frustration. Receiving the perfect pass, Yuka jumps and executes a clean layup, scoring the first basket of the game. Oniai-san flashes a peace sign, acknowledging their 2-0 lead.
The opposing team is left stunned and silent, unsure how to react.
Despite their early success, Yuka seems distracted, telling herself that now is not the time to be thinking about other things.
Elated by their success, Oniai-san and Yuka high-five, with Yuka exclaiming that this is fun.
Nearby, a frustrated Mayeta vows to stop Yuka on the next play.
Yuka agrees to score again, but internally reflects on the previous play, realizing that scoring would have been impossible without Oniai-san's pass.
Determined not to rely on him to carry her, Yuka resolves to prove that all her past efforts were meaningful.
Taking the ball herself, she begins to drive past the defenders, including a shocked Mayeta who can't comprehend Yuka's sudden assertiveness, and successfully makes another shot, validating her effort.
As the ball sinks through the net, onlookers criticize a player named Shisuke for his poor movement and comment that Mayeta is too focused on stopping Yuka.
Oniai-san calls out, praising Yuka for the nice shot. Yuka thanks him for the pass, admitting she was being overly cautious.
Oniai-san reassures her, suggesting that next time she should try breaking through the defense on her own, as he believes she is capable of getting past them. He promises to be in position for a pass just in case. Moved by the trust her brother has in her, Yuka happily agrees. The simple act of someone believing in her motivates her to try even harder.
As the next play is about to begin, Mayeta approaches Yuka and demands to know who the boy with her is. With a warm, determined expression, Yuka holds the basketball and declares, "He's someone precious to me."
Her heartfelt answer only serves to infuriate Mayeta further, who grits her teeth in anger. Internally, Yuka reaffirms that her brother is her one and only precious person, and she is determined to live up to his expectations. With renewed resolve, she passes the ball to a teammate to start a new play.
After receiving the ball back, Yuka executes her specialty move, a rapid leg-through dribble followed by a crossover, which successfully fakes out the first defender.
However, as she drives toward the hoop, a taller opponent moves to intercept her, anticipating the shot and preparing to block it.
The defender leaps and gets a hand on the ball, successfully blocking Yuka's initial layup attempt.
Undeterred, Yuka adjusts her form in mid-air, maintaining control of the ball for a second chance shot.
The defender is shocked by Yuka's recovery.
Yuka feels confident, recalling how she has seen her brother make this exact shot countless times and has practiced it herself. A memory of her brother surfaces, noting that he only perfected the move in high school.
The ball sinks cleanly through the net for a basket.
Later, Yuka recounts a past event while looking at a scar on her leg. She explains that after a match, a senior from the boys' basketball team got into an argument with those who had been bullying her, which led to the senior captain and the entire team formally apologizing to her. After the game, Yuka's brother praises her final shot. She deflects, insisting her success is entirely thanks to watching and learning from him. Overcome with gratitude, she thanks him profusely. Her brother apologizes for being late, explaining that he had been watching from a distance.
He reveals that he saw her get pushed and rushed over, regretting that he didn't notice sooner and prevent her from getting hurt. Yuka is visibly touched by his concern. He tells her he's genuinely happy he got to play on a team with her, even under these circumstances. Complimenting her skill, he predicts she'll surpass him soon. As Yuka expresses her own happiness, he suddenly notices something and asks her to wait. He takes her arm and leans in close, his expression serious. Yuka is immediately flustered, her mind jumping to the conclusion that he is about to kiss her. Her thoughts spiral as she considers the possibility of her first kiss happening outside, in broad daylight. Deciding the moment feels right, she thinks of her parents and closes her eyes in anticipation. Opening her eyes, Yuka finds a band-aid freshly applied to a scrape on her elbow. Her brother apologizes for not noticing her injury sooner, completely oblivious to her inner turmoil. He is then startled by her emotional reaction. Overwhelmed and with her thoughts jumbled, Yuka suddenly embraces her brother. Surprised, he asks her what's wrong. But Yuka is lost in her own feelings, relieved that he wasn't disgusted by her and immensely happy that he cares. As she resolves to tell him everything, he gently strokes her hair and praises her, saying, "You did great, Yuka." He smiles and tells her she was really cool. His words resonate deeply with Yuka, who, blushing with tears in her eyes, internally confesses that she likes him so much. Yuka's thoughts solidify, she can't see anyone else but her brother, Masato-san. She recalls the feeling of holding him tightly to confirm her feelings. The scene then shifts to Masato, who sighs contentedly as he flops onto his futon. Deciding to reply to some messages before sleeping, Masato scrolls through his phone. He notes a thank you message from Yuka and a thoughtful one from Sarah-san. He also sees a message from Mizuho, worrying that she hasn't seemed energetic lately. He reflects that since coming to this world, most of the people he's gotten close to are women. After replying to his messages, Masato prepares for sleep. He recalls someone asking about his plans for tomorrow and mentioning tutoring, which makes him wonder if his tutor is a girl. It has been 2 months since he arrived in this world, and he feels things have worked out surprisingly well. Despite Aika-san's warning to be wary of women, he thinks everyone has been good to him and there haven't been any real problems. In her room, Yuka reflects on her feelings for Masato. While being in love has made her happy, it has also brought new anxieties about the many girls surrounding him and the secrecy of his new part-time job. Elsewhere, a blonde-haired girl lies in bed, also thinking about a tutoring job and worrying about the possibility of the student being a girl. Hugging her pillow, the blonde girl steals her resolve, internally declaring that she won't back down no matter who the rival is. At that moment, her phone lights up with a notification. She jolts upright in bed, startled to see the messages from Masato. A wave of panic washes over her as she desperately prays that his new student is a boy, or at least an elementary schooler, dreading the alternative. The message confirms her worst fear: the student is a second-year high school girl. The scene then shifts to this very student, a dark-haired girl sitting at her desk. She looks at her textbook and thinks of Masato-san, eagerly anticipating their tutoring session the following day. Masato's new tutee, a high school girl, carefully gets ready. As she adjusts her dress, she wonders if she would be accepted if she were to become the hero's partner. Elsewhere, Masato examines his finances, noting that a recent payment seems too high for a part-time job. He realizes Aika-san has likely been covering some of his living expenses. He reflects on the 2 jobs she introduced him to. One is at a boys' bar, a fact he found difficult to explain to Kumi. Just then, his phone buzzes with an incoming call from her. He answers, wondering why she's calling so early. On the other end, Kumi's voice is completely emotionless as she asks if he's going to the girl's house to tutor her again today. The chilling tone makes Masato shudder, and he nervously asks if he did something wrong. Walking outside after the call, Masato is bewildered, admitting to himself that he has no idea what triggers Kumi's sudden mood shifts. He finds girls incredibly hard to understand, reflecting that while Kumi is normally sweet, she can become scary in an instant. This newfound awkwardness contrasts sharply with his past, where he was confident in talking to girls and was even confessed to multiple times. As he walks, Masato reflects on Kumi's possessiveness,
concluding that while he was raised to be kind to everyone, he feels he shouldn't treat Kumi the same way he treats other girls. Accepting that he can't change his fundamental nature, he decides to put those thoughts aside and switch gears, focusing on the part-time job ahead of him.
Masato arrives at a large, gated house and rings the bell.
He is greeted by a woman he addresses as ma'am, who informs him that her daughter, Shirori, is waiting in her room. He recalls that it's been about a month since he started this tutoring job, which Aika-san arranged for him.
He knocks on Shiori's door and announces himself as Katasato. His tutee, a third-year middle school girl named Shirori Shinomiya, opens the door. She seems surprised, noting that he isn't wearing his school uniform.
Masato explains that it felt strange to wear a uniform on a day off and compliments her dress, calling it pretty and fresh. A bit flustered, Shirori thanks him and compliments his cool appearance in return, as he notices her demure, rich girl demeanor. Shirori holds up a book, noting that a work by Takasaka-san was interesting. Masato, trying to make conversation, makes a poetic comment about the title, but immediately regrets it, realizing he might have made an awkward, spur-of-the-moment remark. As Masato decides to start the lesson, he feels inadequate, thinking that simple chatting with a literary girl like Shirori is beyond him. Simultaneously, Shirori is lost in thought, still in disbelief that someone as wonderful as Masato is in her room, and questions if she truly deserves to be around him. After all, she believes the real her is plain and frumpy.
This is the general impression she feels others have of her, an impression she doesn't mind.
She recalls her hopes for high school being quickly crushed by the social reality, where the popular boys only gravitated toward the top-tier girls, leaving someone like her as a leftover. In her school life, she rationalized her situation by telling herself she didn't really need a boyfriend, setting impossibly high standards for hygiene and appearance that few could meet. In truth, her real companion was her library card, which she cherished. She has always loved fantasy novels, particularly those for women, because the characters have beautiful hearts. The heroes are cool, and the heroines have clear reasons to fall for them. This idealized world is a stark contrast to her own, where she is ignored and mocked by classmates. Sighing at the thought, Shirori concludes that in the end, reality is trash. The flashback shows her returning home from school, dejected, only to be greeted by her mother at the door. At home, Shiori's mother suddenly begins to pry into her daughter's social life, asking if she's made any friends or found a boyfriend. She insists that Shirori should experience romance while still in school, a sentiment Shirori has heard countless times. When her mother asks about her college choice, Shirori confirms it hasn't changed. Her mother then reveals her true motive: a friend knows someone attending Shiori's target college, and she has arranged for him to be Shiori's tutor. She cheerfully informs a shocked Shirori that he is coming over this Saturday, urging her to at least meet him once. Shirori is aghast at how pushy her mother is being. Retreating to her room, Shirori complains that talking to people is a pain and that she can study just fine on her own. She resolves to make up an excuse and send the tutor home immediately. Later that Saturday, she escapes into one of her fantasy novels, gushing over the perfect hero who she considers to be cool, smart, strong, and kind. She reflects that such a perfect person couldn't exist in real life, just as her mother calls out that the tutor has arrived. Realizing she's still in her school uniform, Shirori dismisses it, figuring he'll be leaving soon anyway. Grumbling about the inconvenience, she heads to the door. Peeking out, she is greeted by a familiar voice. It's Masato Katasato. Shirori is left speechless and blushing as her mother proudly introduces the handsome boy she asked to tutor her daughter. Completely overwhelmed, Shirori stammers out a request for him to wait a moment before abruptly slamming the door shut. She slides to the floor in a panic, internally screaming that nobody told her the tutor would be a boy. She fumes, accusing her mother, that evil witch, of setting her up. Behind the slammed door, Shirori panics. Her room is a disaster zone of her private hobbies. Clothes are out, her game console is on, and most damningly, her bookshelves are filled with various genres of romance and erotic novels that she cannot let him see. She frantically decides to cover the evidence. Steeling herself, Shirori cautiously opens the door again, internally admitting that her new tutor is quite good-looking. She apologizes for the wait, but Masato is unbothered, explaining that his mother's message about the tutoring session must not have been clear.
Shiori invites him in.
With Masato now sitting in her room, Shiori's mind races. The reality of "a hot guy is in my room" is too much for her to handle.
She immediately becomes suspicious, reasoning that someone this perfect must have a terrible personality.
Overwhelmed and unable to speak in her normal voice, she agrees with his suggestion that they talk first to decide if he's a suitable tutor. Masato shows remarkable consideration, telling Shiori that the sudden arrangement was probably awkward and that she can feel free to tell her mother later if it's not a good fit.
His kindness only fuels Shiori's paranoia. She believes he's just acting nice to secure the job.
When he asks why she's interested in his university, she internally warns herself not to be tricked by his pleasant demeanor.
He then asks what kind of books she usually reads, a question that sends Shiori into another panic.
She imagines that admitting her love for cheesy romance stories would completely disgust him. Desperate to find a safe answer, she lies, claiming she reads literary fiction. To her surprise, Masato seems genuinely impressed.
Masato's positive reaction is the final straw for Shiori.
Convinced that no one can be this perfect, she decides she must force the issue. Believing that a plain girl like her would be a target for his true, rude nature to emerge, she tells him he must have plenty of other offers and would surely rather teach someone cute. She asks him why he would even consider tutoring her, hoping to provoke him into revealing his supposed true colors. Masato dismisses Shiori's attempt at self-deprecation, stating that her personality doesn't matter. He promises to help her get into university regardless.
He then smiles warmly, telling her, "You're a truly wonderful person, Shiori.
When I saw you earlier, I thought you were really beautiful." Stunned by his compliment, Shiori internally compares him to a hero from a story who crossed dimensions just for her. The thought that someone like him will be visiting her room every week fills her with a nervous excitement, and she wonders if something accidental might happen between them. Her mind flashes back to a time before she changed her appearance. She recalls a book she was reading, The Saint and the Red-Haired Knight, which featured a prince-like male lead, and begins to tremble. In the past, Shiori looked at her reflection in the mirror and despaired, believing she didn't look the part of a heroine who could be with such a hero. She berated herself with cruel internal thoughts, convinced her delusions were cringeworthy and that no one would give a lame, glasses-wearing virgin the time of day. She resolved then that she had a choice to become that heroine.
This resolution led her to approach her mother and declare, "Mom, teach me how to do makeup."
From that moment, her lifestyle changed. She switched from glasses to contacts, stopped braiding her hair, and, with her transformation complete, steeled her resolve as she prepared to go to school. Arriving at school with her new look, she was immediately met with stares and whispers from her classmates. Overwhelmed with anxiety, she worried that she looked weird and that everyone thought she was a freak for trying to change.
Continuing her recollection, Shiori remembers the first day she went to school with her new appearance.
Her classmates were taken aback, with one girl approaching to ask if she'd had a makeover, noting her completely different vibe. Shiori reflects that while she used to think of popular students as an entirely different species, she surprisingly made friends after her transformation. They even helped her pick out new clothes, as she had very few. Her primary motivation, she recalls, was her desire to show her new self to Masato. In her memory, a dressed-up Shiori believed that if she could just stand beside her hero, Masato, her unconventional love would be accepted. Just then, Masato arrived at her door, and she was immediately overwhelmed by how dazzling he seemed. The memory shifts to Masato inside her room, where he innocently asks what she was reading. A wave of panic hits Shiori as she realizes she left an erotic novel out, albeit hidden under the cover of a different book by an author named Takasaka. Internally, Shiori admits she hasn't read a single page of the book she's using as a disguise. When Masato asks about the title, Summer Fell from the Second Floor, she improvises a flustered explanation that the novel is about beautiful boys raining down, promising to read it for their next study session. The flashback concludes with a memory of one of their study sessions. While Shiori feels blissful just spending time with him, she struggles to follow his clear explanations. Determined not to be a burden, she resolves to understand the material no matter what.
As Masato leans in close to guide her through the reading order with his finger, Shiori is immediately flustered, internally questioning if a private ASMR session has just begun.
The sensation of his hand on her back and his breath near her ear sends a shock through her system, causing her mind to reel. Just as she's about to break, Masato abruptly pulls away, apologizing as he needs to use the restroom. Left alone, Shirori is completely overwhelmed, covering her mouth in a state of shock and arousal. She collapses into a chair, her body still tingling from the lingering sensation of his touch. She internally laments that her prim and proper facade is cracking under the weight of what she considers a filthy lust. And this overwhelming feeling culminates in a powerful, physical urge as she slams her hands down, internally screaming her desire to push him down and feel his body against hers. When Masato returns, he innocently wonders if he has somehow angered her. Unseen by him, Shirori clenches her fist, her blush hidden as she makes a silent, firm vow to conquer the boy she now thinks of as a lewd private tutor. At the office, Saira Hoshira notices on the work schedule that her colleague, Miki, has taken Friday afternoon off. As other co-workers celebrate an upcoming banquet, Saira wonders if this means Miki won't be attending. A colleague reassures Saira that Miki is still coming to the banquet. Another co-worker then playfully leans in, asking Saira if she's curious to know the real reason Miki took time off. And reveals that Miki is doing a companion shift. She explains that she is going on a date with a host named Yusuai-kun before they head to the bar together. The news leaves Saira utterly stunned. Overcome with emotion, Saira exclaims, "I'm so jealous." She asks if the host invited Miki, feeling a wave of relief when Miki clarifies that she was the one who asked him. Internally, Saira admits she would have fled from sheer jealousy otherwise. Seeing her reaction, another colleague reminds her that Masato-kun likes her and suggests she should try inviting him out. At the office, talk of an upcoming bonus payday inspires Saira Hoshira. While her colleague is excited about outings, Saira's thoughts drift to Masato-kun, and she begins to fantasize about giving him a present. A fantasy that quickly escalates into her proposing to him with a ring. She immediately snaps back to reality, realizing such a sudden, bold move would only frighten him. Determined to move their relationship beyond just customer and staff, Saira decides to take a concrete step forward. She leaves a note on Masato-kun's desk, asking if he would like to go out with her on Friday. Later, Saira receives a text message with his reply. Reading his affirmative response, she erupts in a quiet but ecstatic "yes" at her desk, overjoyed that he accepted. On Friday, the day of their date, Saira carefully gets ready. She selects her attire and checks her appearance in the mirror, feeling a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. As she walks to their meeting spot, Saira reflects on how the mere thought of seeing him makes her heart race with a happiness she never knew she could feel. Just then, she hears Masato-kun call her name from nearby. Masato-kun arrives for the date, apologizing in case he kept Saira Hoshira waiting. Saira is immediately struck by his appearance, internally thinking he looks like an angel. This thought quickly shifts as she is overwhelmed by his coolness, deciding he is more like a devil. Her internal monologue continues as she notices his shirt is unbuttoned enough to see his collarbones, wondering if he dressed more maturely to match her. When Masato asks if she said something, she quickly dismisses it, assuring him she hadn't been waiting long at all. He smiles, telling her he's looking forward to it. As they walk to the restaurant, Saira is overcome with emotion, barely able to contain her excitement. She internally confirms with herself that this is truly a date and that her Masato is impossibly cute. They soon arrive at the venue she has chosen. Inside, Masato remarks that it's a beautiful place, and Saira teases him for being happy over something so simple, calling him a kid. He playfully objects, stating he's grown up, but she thinks his reaction is precisely what makes him cute. Her pleasant mood sours slightly as she notices stares from other patrons, finding them annoying. Feeling an indescribable sense of superiority, Saira internally claims Masato as hers. When the menu arrives, she tells him to order whatever he likes because she will pay for it. Masato protests, but she firmly refuses to let him pay a single cent, stating that spending money on him is the only thing worthwhile to her. Saira explains that while she considered a more high-class restaurant, she chose this one because she thought a fancier place might make him too nervous and she just wanted him to enjoy himself. Masato is glad she did. He takes a bite of the food and his eyes sparkle with delight, which Saira observes with affection, thinking he's just like a kid and eats beautifully. As they finish their meal, Saira internally confesses that her love for Masato grows with every little thing he does. Masato, meanwhile, is audibly impressed, remarking that the food was insanely delicious and wondering when he last ate something so good.
Saira is glad he enjoyed it, internally reflecting on how pure and adorable he is, seemingly untouched by anything dirty.
This purity is precisely why she feels compelled to ask him a question she knows she probably shouldn't, and she calls out his name to get his attention. She asks Masato why he chose to work at the bar, a job she feels involves selling oneself.
Masato hesitates, confirming Saira's suspicion that he doesn't want to talk about it. After she apologizes for asking something difficult, he admits it's because he doesn't have any money.
Masato elaborates on his situation, explaining that he originally lived in an institution and does not have parents. He was able to start working at the bar thanks to someone there who treated him kindly.
Saira is stunned into silence by this revelation.
Overcome with guilt, Saira apologizes profusely, berating herself for putting her own curiosity before Masato's feelings. Masato, however, quickly reassures her that he isn't bothered at all and that she has nothing to be sorry for, stating he considers himself fortunate now.
With a bright, genuine smile, Masato declares that he is happy.
The sight of his pure joy leaves Saira speechless and visibly moved, her expression hardening with a new resolve as she clenches her fist beneath the table. As they walk through the city at night, Saira Hoshira thanks Masato profusely, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions from their time together. Masato dismisses it as his way of saying thanks, but Saira feels indebted, wondering how she can repay him.
Seizing the opportunity, Saira asks if he would go out with her again, and he readily agrees.
Internally, she celebrates securing another date, feeling their relationship has evolved beyond just customer and staff. She hopes to become someone he can truly rely on. Gathering her courage, Saira stops and asks Masato if it would be alright for them to hold hands on the way to the bar, a question that leaves him momentarily stunned and flustered. But after a moment of shy hesitation, he covers his face and agrees. As he nervously reaches out, Saira's heart soars, and she gently takes his hand in hers. Walking together, Saira feels an incredible sense of joy, believing that she is getting closer to understanding Masato's heart and that he is finally opening up to her. She finds him both cool and cute at the same time. Her feelings intensify into a powerful, protective desire. Thinking of him as my poor, pitiful Masato, she makes a silent, firm vow to work hard enough so that he will never have to do his current job again. As Saira Hoshira embraces Masato from behind, covering his eyes, her internal resolve hardens. She thinks to herself that she will protect him, shielding him from the world's filth so that he never has to suffer again. She silently vows to grant his every wish, and to stay together with him forever. Her thoughts intensify, becoming a possessive promise that for all eternity, she will never let go of his hand. To save money on his electric bill, Masato decides to spend the hot Sunday outside, heading towards a building that is usually empty. As he approaches, he hears the sounds of activity and peeks inside, where he is surprised to find a girl he recognizes, Yuka, playing basketball with her friends. He watches as she calls for the ball, fully engaged in the game. After Yuka makes a shot and high-fives a teammate, Masato observes her leadership with a sense of novelty. Feeling tired himself and not wanting to interrupt, he turns to leave, but is stopped by a voice calling out, "Oniai-san." The person who called out to Masato is revealed to be his younger sister, who cheerfully states she can always tell where he is. Her voice draws the attention of Yuka and her friends, who are surprised to see Masato there. One of the friends asks who he is. Yuka's friends immediately jump to the conclusion that Masato was the guy from Friday and must be Yuka's boyfriend. Flustered, Yuka vehemently denies it, explaining that he's just very good at basketball. Seizing the opportunity, her friends eagerly ask Masato to teach them as well. Masato agrees and begins teaching the other girls, introducing himself as Miho's brother. As he corrects another girl's form, telling her to use her fingertips instead of her palm, Yuka begins to sulk. Internally, she feels a surge of possessiveness, thinking that he is her Oniai-san, not theirs. Masato mentions to the group that he told Yuka the same thing about everyone enjoying basketball. Yuka overhears this and reflects internally. She reassures herself that even if he teaches everyone, the time they spent together alone remains special and unique to them. She fondly recalls their one-on-one time, remembering how he taught her and how she praised him. Yuka thinks to herself that she would be happy if he felt the same way about their special time together. However, her jealousy resurfaces as she hears all her friends calling him Oni-san. Deciding she needs a way to stand out, she resolves to call him Masato-san instead. After making a successful shot, she turns to him and says, "Thank you very much." As the basketball practice concludes, Masato gives some final words of encouragement to the girls. Seizing the opportunity, one of Yuka's friends directly asks Masato what kind of existence Yuka is to him, causing Yuka to blush intensely. Masato thoughtfully considers the question, noting that it does bother him. He recalls recent events and concludes that Yuka is like a little sister to him. The answer hits Yuka with the force of a physical blow, leaving her stunned and horrified. Internally, Yuka acknowledges that they are close and that he treasures her, but she realizes with dawning despair that being his little sister isn't enough. As long as he sees her that way, he will never fall in love with her or make her his girlfriend. She finally admits to herself, "I'm in love with him." With this new self-awareness, Yuka's expression hardens with resolve. Masato, completely oblivious to her inner turmoil, simply offers a gentle smile. Determined to make him fall for her, Yuka listens as one of her friends asks Masato if he has a girlfriend. When he confirms that he does not, Yuka and her friends share a collective, unspoken sigh of relief, with one friend remarking she would have cried if he'd said yes. Suddenly, Miho throws her hand in the air and loudly declares, "Then I'll volunteer to be your girlfriend." The outburst shocks Yuka. Masato, amused, reminds his sister that she claimed to have a boyfriend. As the practice officially ends, Yuka's friends thank Masato, leaving the new tension hanging in the air. As Masato and Miho prepare to leave, he apologizes for intruding. Yuka, blushing, musters the courage to ask him to come watch her next game, an invitation he enthusiastically accepts. Internally, Yuka struggles with her feelings, acknowledging that she wants to advance their relationship beyond the little sister dynamic but feels too cowardly to say so. Seeing her trail off, Masato offers to practice with her one-on-one next time, and she agrees. He explains with a smile that it's better to teach her if it's just the two of them. Yuka is overjoyed, her heart fluttering as she wonders if he also wants to be alone with her. Masato's attention then shifts to her footwear, noting that her sneakers are quite worn out. He advises her that she should wear proper basketball shoes to reduce the risk of injury, and then completely surprises her by suggesting, "Next time, let's go buy you a pair of basketball shoes." Stunned but ecstatic, Yuka eagerly agrees. Masato proposes they go sometime the following week and waves goodbye. Left alone, Yuka internally celebrates what she considers to be her very first date. Her moment of private joy is cut short as her friends swarm her, playfully teasing her for keeping Masato to herself and securing a date. The scene transitions to the following week, setting the stage for their outing. Yuka and Masato meet for their shopping trip. Having woken up early, Yuka is already waiting when he arrives. Masato greets her and notes that this is the first time he has seen her in casual clothes, as she is always in her basketball gear. Internally, Yuka reveals she picked out her most mature-looking outfit in the hopes that Masato would notice her. She nervously asks him how she looks, and he replies with a smile that she looks cute and the outfit really suits her. Yuka thanks him, flustered by the compliment. While happy, she privately wishes he had called her pretty instead of cute. As they head into a large sporting goods store, she grips her bag strap, resolving to do her best to make him notice her properly. Inside the spacious store, they decide to head to the basketball section. Yuka observes Masato and ponders his natural talent for basketball, which he achieved without any formal lessons. She concludes he must have played other sports and is simply amazing. They arrive at the shoe section, and Yuka is impressed by the vast selection. Masato points out a specific shoe for outdoor use. Yuka's internal resolve strengthens. She feels she still knows so little about him and wants to learn much more. Masato asks if any particular pair catches her eye, then points to one similar to what he uses, commenting on its cool design, and before he can finish, Yuka enthusiastically declares she'll take that one.
Her immediate decision, made without even trying the shoes on, leaves Masato completely bewildered.
After Yuka enthusiastically confirms she'll take the shoes, Masato tells her that's fine and asks her to wait while he buys something he needs.
As he walks away, Yuka sits happily, thinking to herself about having a matching pair of shoes with her Onii-san.
Masato returns, apologizing for the wait.
Yuka internally laments that if he was buying basketball gear, she would have liked to look with him.
He then hands her a shopping bag, leaving her confused.
Inside is a shoebox, size 22.5.
Yuka is stunned when Masato reveals he bought the shoes for her as a gift to celebrate her becoming a regular player. He gently pats her head to calm her down when she protests, telling her it's fine.
Overwhelmed and flustered, Yuka bows deeply and thanks him profusely. Masato smiles and says she's welcome.
Internally, Yuka is ecstatic, repeating yes, as she thinks about receiving a present from the person she likes. Seeing her joy, Masato suggests they continue to practice hard together, and she clutches the gift to her chest, savoring the happy moment. While walking, Yuka reflects on her happiness. This feeling is tinged with melancholy, as she acknowledges that despite wanting him to see her differently, Masato likely still views her as a little sister. She wonders how she can ever graduate from that role in his eyes. Later that night in her room, Yuka contemplates how to get closer to Masato, seeking more skinship. She recalls that her last hug only earned her a head pat, and realizes she desires something more intimate. Her thoughts drift to the idea of a kiss. Later that night, Yuka lies in bed, unable to quell her thoughts about Masato. She considers that if she were to make a move, he would definitely become conscious of her as more than a sister. Her mind drifts to his lips, and she gets flustered, trying to dismiss the idea. Clutching a stuffed animal, she sighs and wonders what a first kiss with her first love would be like. Her imagination runs wild as she pictures giving him a small peck on the cheek, and even considers going further before mentally pulling back and telling herself she's just kidding. The romantic turmoil leaves her wide awake, certain that she won't be able to sleep at all that night.